It's time for more Steam Deck performance. After my Resident Evil 4 2005 video went up last week, I got a request to do the same for another game of the series, Resident Evil 8 or Village. Now this game has a rocky history with handheld PCs and PC in general. Even today, it's not a greatly optimized PC port, but it's worlds ahead of what it used to be, and the Steam Deck can technically get results better than the PS4 version, at least most of the time. So, let's go into how the Steam Deck can run Resident Evil Village. To offer a quick summary, Village takes place a bit after the events of Resident Evil 7, with returning protag Ethan Winters searching for his missing daughter. It's got very loose ties to the other games of the series, so if you've only played 7, that's pretty much all you need info-wise for this one. Now before we go into performance, it's worth noting that swapping between Linux and Proton versions doesn't really do much with how this game runs. It also doesn't change between the original first-person perspective and the DLC third-person view that makes it feel more like the older Resident Evil titles like 4, 5, and 6. But moving on to performance. I did 3 main tests here until I found what I consider to be the sweet spot for the deck. Village gives a lot of good presets that can change the visual presentation. The thing about these presets is they'll all get you above 30 FPS. Even throwing everything up to prioritize graphics will have a normal average in the 40s and 50s. There will be occasional drops down closer to 30 when the game stutters, but you should never get consistent frames at 30 or lower as long as you have frame rate set to 60 or variable. But if you want high consistency, well, that's the issue because of how much this game stutters. Stuttering was always a problem with Village's PC port, though it happens more often at lower frame rates than higher. To give a bit of context, I set all 3 presets I tested, prioritize performance, recommended, and prioritize graphics, don't stay consistent with 60 FPS. Performance and recommended do stay in that 55 to 60 range, but don't stay right at 60 all the time. So you might think to move settings down to 30 or 40 on lock, but that actually increases the amount of stuttering the game has. It actually looks really jarring when you run Village's Steam port at 30 FPS. While the frames technically don't drop, the jittery and stutters really make it not look very smooth. What I would do is keep the frame rate on variable and you'll get a lot of great smooth gameplay. On prioritized performance, the visuals will be pretty grainy and blurry at times, especially when you're in motion. But you'll mostly get 58 to 60 FPS whether you're inside a building or in the more open areas. Crank it up to prioritize graphics or max to get a prettier picture, and you'll rarely hit 60 FPS, but get a lot in the low to mid 50s. That's still good, but not perfect. What I like is a balance of the two with the recommended preset. With recommended, you mostly get the same 58 to 60 you get from performance mode, with dips down into the mid 50s when you have more stressing action going on, like the sister's bug effect in her boss fight. While it isn't as high all the time on frame rate, you are giving up 4 or 5 frames every once in a while for a better looking game. Now with the frame rate higher, you will still get stutters every once in a while, mostly when entering new areas, but they won't be very often and most of the stutters are pretty small. This setup is visually comparable to the PlayStation 4 version of Village, with frame rates almost on par with the PS4 Pro and a bit higher than the 45 FPS cap of the base PlayStation 4. That's it for performance, so let's talk battery life, which is a little more than I expected. If you run with the brightness all the way up, Village will net you around 2.5 hours of battery life, and with the brightness down, you can expect just under 3 hours. It's nowhere near what the original Resident Evil 4 gets you, but above what you get from a typical AAA Steam game. Now, in conclusion, would I recommend Resident Evil Village to Steam Deck users? I definitely would. It may not get a perfect 60 frames per second all the time, but the recommended settings will get you just under that for an experience that, minus a few stutters here and there, is better than a base PS4 and a nice and smooth ride, even in those bug-filled areas of the castle. And that's all I got for you today. I'll be back soon with more Steam Deck performance and reviews. As always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.